Hi, everyone. Got a news flash. Well, we got several news flashes for you guys today. It is June 26th, 2024. We had an active shooter situation over in Melbourne, Florida. We're going to watch the press conference on that, see what news broadcast came out on it. We've also got a press conference for Tracy Ferriter. Oh, am I being too loud? I apologize. It was her and her attorney that spoke out to the media after she entered her plea deal where she got her little slap on the wrist. If you guys are not familiar with that, I did have a video on it. You can go back and watch it. It should be in the last one or two videos I've done. Okay, then we've got what's going on with Daniel Callahan, the strange man who has been indicted along with Victoria Cox for his role in the unaliving of a Louisiana mother and her 3-year-old child. And we've got a multi-state issue going on with that. We'll get into that. He was in court yesterday, and so we're going to go there and see what we can find on that as well. So let's get started with what happened out of Melbourne, okay? I want to hear what this press conference was all about. I want the full press conference, so I don't want 2 or 3 freaking minutes. Are they going to... This was streamed 55 minutes ago. We'll pull this up to get an idea, and then we'll go over and listen to what the police say, okay? There's no sound. It's an apartment complex. I do know that much. Let me read. And if you guys hear panting in the background, Frankie's been outside for a while, and he just came back in, and it's hot as hell out there, so he's over here panting. And he's over 100 pounds, so it sounds like he's dying. But he's not. He's not dying. I love my babies. I do watch them. Looks like there's one of those, what do they call those big trucks? Where is Melbourne, you ask? Well, it is on, I'm trying to see what city it's close to. It's on the same side as Miami. It's something that you guys would know. Let me tell you. It's north of Vero Beach. It's south of Cocoa Beach. It's southeast of Orlando, because it's well above West Palm Beach. So that kind of gives you an idea. Yeah, this started over 3 hours ago, I guess. It says that one person is in custody after being shot multiple times when they fired at law enforcement officers. This occurred at a Melbourne apartment complex. Police responded Wednesday morning to the area of Babcock Street and Strawbridge Avenue. According to Melbourne Police Chief David Gillespie, officers were called to the Pentagon Garden Apartments after residents reported a suspicious situation. Now we're looking at the armored vehicles that are surrounding the location, and this streamed 20 minutes. This has been a couple hours, about 2 hours. It says when officers arrived, they were engaged by the suspect with gunfire. Multiple rounds were fired at the officers. They took cover and were eventually able to get to safety. The gunman shot at officers and eventually came out of an apartment and continued shooting. Gillespie said at least 2 officers fired and the gunman was shot multiple times. The threat has been neutralized. Twitter X, which is formerly Twitter, says Melbourne police exactly working active shooter situation. Please avoid the area. And then the police put in another thing that said the incident has been contained at this point. However, the investigation remains ongoing, and there will be law enforcement present in the area, but there's no further threat to public safety. There's probably very little we know about this situation. So let's go back over. I would say there's probably little that police know about this situation. I apologize. I hit the wrong back button. I want to hear what this officer has to say. So we're going here. Screen. I think it's just too early in the investigation for them to say a whole lot.
Mr. Bauer, reporter, is now on the scene. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Everybody involved. We want to make sure our officers are safe.
Sir, have you been able to survey any victims inside? If he's still holed up in there, have you been able to go in and see kind of what that situation is?
No, we have not been inside the residence. So, no, at this time, we know that he's in there. We know he's armed and that he's fired numerous rounds outside.
What brought you guys out here? What was the first call?
So we received a call. We responded out here for what we would describe at this point as a suspicious situation. And when officers arrived, they were immediately met with gunfire.
How many officers tried to was it knocking on the door saying someone come out? Kind of how did that initial approach start?
They didn't have the opportunity to knock on the door. So again, we're very fortunate. Our officers did a fantastic job. They continue to work. It's pretty hot out right now, but we continue to be out there. And until we get this situation resolved, probably reserve some of the other additional details until later.
Sir, were they met with gunfire from the window, the door? Where was he firing from at them?
So that information I can't release at this time. So I think we'll just leave it at that. Again, I don't want to speak too much about some of the specifics. We still have a guy in there. We still have officers out there in harm's way. And I want to make sure that they get out of there safely and get this subject into custody.
Sir, if there's anyone who's living at that apartment complex, what should they do right now seeing this to stay safe?
They need to shelter in place. So we highly recommend that everybody stay there. That way everything is contained and we'll get them out.
And notice this was at 9:49 Eastern time in Orlando area. Well, it's Melbourne Beach. Again, I said it's southeast of
out as soon as we can.
Orlando.
Sir, just for me navigating here, a lot of roadblocks in place. Obviously, we want drivers to stay out of this area. Just speak with us, not to be getting too close to this scene. And if you can avoid this space, that will help.
Absolutely. Anybody in the near vicinity should find alternate routes. We do have traffic that is flowing along 192 and some of the major thoroughfares. We feel they're safe in that regard. But anybody in a closer contained area, we do have those areas.
All right, we'll come back when they have more information on this guy. Somebody said something about the mayor posting that he was not alive anymore. I don't know if somebody's jumping to conclusions with them saying that he was contained or the situation there's no longer a threat. I will say this though, if he was sitting there firing at police like that, he gone, because they're not going to put up with that. But you know what? It might have been one of those types of people who was looking for a way out, and they wanted that whole death by police. Sad as it sounds, that happens more often than not. All right, let's move over to Tracy Ferriter's press conference from yesterday. This was immediately following her plea.
Tracy did this so she could put some peace with her family. She didn't want to put her children through a trial. That was her main impetus for taking this plea. She wanted it to be resolved. And it was a completely different case than what was presented through her husband's case. So even though she had a very good chance of being exonerated, she really wanted
to. No, she didn't.
Just put this to rest so her children can have some peace.
What's
she
the
knew
one
she was
thing
going
you want
down.
the public to know?
That Tracy's not a monster, that this is a human being who's extremely educated, loving, adopted children out of the goodness of her heart. And the media really got it wrong because, unfortunately, we don't know about children with RAD, reactive attachment disorder.
Okay, whoa, and stop. What we didn't get wrong, what the media didn't get wrong, was the videos that we heard, because we couldn't watch them, because watching it probably would have been worse. So no, she is a monster. And okay, your excuse is she's educated, then she should have known freaking better.
And pretty much, hopefully this brings some light to it, and maybe Tracy in the future will talk more about this and help other families who went through or are going through what she and her family went through. It's horrible.
How would have her trial been different from her husband's?
Heidi?
It wouldn't have. She would have gone down.
In a number of ways. Probably first and foremost is that Tracy was going to take the stand. Unlike Tim, there was never a question. Tracy was going to testify and tell her side of the story, which would have shed enormous light, and the jury would have had an opportunity to hear the horror that she had to live with on a daily basis.
The horror that she had to live with on a daily basis. I have a feeling that Tracy was prepared to throw Timmy under the bus. And I know that they're saying the horror is referring to the child and what he did. Why wasn't any of that on the tape, though? We didn't see that child throwing a fit. We saw that child crying and screaming in frustration. And then you know what else we saw with your attachment disorder diagnosis? We saw a child get up there after all that had happened to him and say he forgave Tim because they did the best that they could with the situation. That child in this situation was more an adult than they were.
We also had experts that were not in Tim's case. There was a nationally renowned expert, RAD expert, that I think would have provided a wealth of information to the jury to better understand that situation and what she was going through on a daily basis. There also would have been a child that had not testified in the first trial that was going to be called by the defense in the second trial, in her trial.
One of her bio kids, one of her biological kids was going to testify, which means she would have been willing to get her child to come in and go through that in order for her to
That would have corroborated the daily fear and violence that this family was put through and had to deal with.
Would you like to ask Tracy?
Yes, Tracy, do you regret how you treated your son?
We were living a life that it's not what it's portrayed in the media. There was a lot of things that nobody knew. We were a completely loving family. I love my kids. We just tried to do the best that we could with what we had.
And how are you feeling right now?
It's tough because I'm doing this because I want my kids to be able to not be a part of this trial, have their names all over the media.
she's doing, y'all, this woman acts like she just did she just took a huge hit for the team. Are you kidding me? Sweetie, you got a slap on the wrist. You got 1 year of house arrest. You should have gotten 10 to 15 in prison. Your husband should have also gotten 10 to 15 in a prison. That luck of river you've been flowing down was continuing to flow when you got this judge assigned to your case, because he totally dropped the freaking ball. That DA, she fought so hard for these kids. I'm sorry. I'll let y'all listen to it.
And that they can move on. But I know the way our family really was. I know the truth of what we were just trying to do. We loved all of our children, and we just were trying to deal with something that there's no cure for. You just try daily, and you try to do whatever you can as a parent, and that's what we were trying to do. And it's just a hard road, and there's not help for this condition. There's not help, that can help parents just to work through it and to deal with some of these behaviors you're dealing with constantly every day. So
Tracy is one.
Let me ask y'all this. Don't you think, as much as this trial went viral, it didn't get enough exposure, honestly, I don't think. Don't you think that somebody out there would have put more out about how this detachment disorder? I saw very little people coming forward on this family's behalf. I saw very little professionals speaking up about what they were going through. Usually when something like this happens, somebody comes to their aid and says, wait, this is what they were dealing with. And this is maybe why they did what they did. Of all the media in this, I think I saw maybe one of those. Y'all let me know if you saw much more. I did not see a whole lot of doctors coming to this family's defense.
One of the most altruistic, loving people that I have ever had the pleasure to meet. Everything that's been portrayed is wholly inconsistent with the way she is.
And we spoke to at least 100 people who knew this family, and everyone said these were the most loving, religious-based family out there, and they loved their kids and treated everybody phenomenally. But nobody really knows what's going on behind closed doors. And when you have a child who, unfortunately, doesn't have a moral compass and can't attach to anybody because of the abuse, unfortunately, that he suffered in an orphanage, sometimes you wind up with things like this that are very sad stories, and they become very non-productive citizens, unfortunately, and sometimes do terrible things. Tracy was trying to protect her family. She was trying to protect her children. She was trying to protect herself. All this would have came out, but Tracy, as being altruistic, didn't want to put her children through any more publicity and wanted just everyone to move on.
Meanwhile,
that is such bullshit. Let's throw him under the bus. Let's throw this. If she really cared for this kid, if she really had any kind of sympathy for this child, she wouldn't speak illfully, or she wouldn't allow her attorney to speak illfully the way he just did. Because what they're doing here in this little press conference is her getting her last word. She's getting the last word on everything right here. Not the child. And you know what's going to happen? This is all going to go away. Tracy's going to go live in which her own little hell. Bless her heart and her privileged life. She's got to go live in hell, but she's moving to Illinois, so bye. And I pray for everybody she has to live around. And then now, this child that's been broken, once again, gets tossed to the side because he was already tossed to the side. He gets tossed to the side again. And so does the other foster child who got up and spoke on his behalf. If you guys don't understand why I'm so angry, then you may not have watched the trial with us. And I talk about the husband's trial. We weren't able to see the video, but what we were able to listen to what was going on. We were able to listen to the child's testimony. The abused child and the other foster child in the situation. Tim was a bully, and she allowed it to happen. She's a follower is all she is. All right, let's move on because I'm just pissed. Wait, you know what? I want to see if the DA said anything. Let's see if the DA spoke out, because I would love to hear what she has to say. What is this? Oh, she did another. Oh, did she do another interview? Yes, she did. Because what? She wants to get the last word.
Tonight, the Jupiter mother who locked her 14-year-old son in a box-like structure in her garage is speaking only to WPBF 25 News about why she did it. Tracy Ferriter took a plea deal yesterday to avoid jail time. Her husband, Timothy, was convicted of the same crime back in October and is serving 5 years in prison.
Tracy Ferriter sat down today for an exclusive interview with our Josie Carbonari to defend her actions, explain why she believes she had no other option.
There were knives that were missing from multiple family members' homes, and we'd find them.
Tracy Ferriter says this is just one of the reasons she and her husband Timothy built an 8x8 box-like structure in their garage and kept their then 14-year-old son locked in it for hours. There was air conditioning, a mattress, and a bucket for the bathroom. The Ferriters could monitor his every move with a surveillance camera.
It's not like he was just in there because he was in trouble. This was his room that he actually would want to go in and read and draw and do Legos and, be in his room sometimes also.
The teenager was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder. Ferriter says he was seeing a psychologist for his violent behavior and issues with stealing and sneaking out.
He pushed my daughter and pushed her head into the windowsill, and she needed stitches. And then I would see a search history because I'd find the stolen tablet, and it would say running over girls with trains. It would be rape porn. It would be things that were so inappropriate.
And what are you thinking when you're finding these things?
You start feeling fear, but you love your children. You think you can help.
Ferriter tells us she and her husband struggled with her son's behavioral issues after adopting him as a toddler from an orphanage in Vietnam. She says that
adopting him as a toddler. He wasn't grown. He was a toddler.
Couple had exhausted all of their options between therapy, medications, and even contacting military schools, which denied him. She explains locking him in the room was the only way to protect the family, including her 3 younger children.
What was it like trying to go to sleep at night?
For sleep, you're always kind of listening for things. You don't sleep very well. And he was right next to us. I would make sure that we could always hear what was going on. There was times I'd tell my other children, lock your doors, because he keeps getting up in the middle of the night. He's taking things. He's roaming the house. He was going out windows.
Ferriter says she wants people to know they tried to be the best parents they could be.
In our home, it was all filled with lots of joy, lots of love.
Really?
We did everything for our kids.
You guys see any tears there? I didn't see any tears. I did not see any tears. If you are familiar with this case and you have an opinion that is different than mine, I do want to hear it in the comments. I do want you to tell me why you think I'm being too harsh. Because what we didn't see in Tim's trial, that was the end of it for me. It was like the cherry on top. We did not see the efforts by the parents to go out and find mental health for this child. We did not see multiple doctor's appointments. We did not see him checking with different doctors. Okay, that doctor's not giving us what we want. Let's go check a different doctor. We didn't see effort on this family to help this child. What we saw was this family giving up on this child by locking him up so he couldn't hurt any of the other kids. I don't blame her for protecting her other children if she felt like this child was a danger. But you don't give up on a child that you've made a promise that you're going to love and take care of. I think there would have been help out there for him. I think there, even if it meant them sending him somewhere. Why didn't they do that? Yeah, military school. A lot of people try the military school thing, but that's more of if a child is that's a child that's just needing to grow up and get the heck scared out of him, right? To get in line. Military school would not have been the answer for this child, in my opinion. This child needed a mental health facility to help him. And they did not find one for him. They didn't do what they needed to do. Any good parent would have gone above and beyond, even if it meant moving the family or, one spouse living here part-time and another spouse living there part-time to get this child the help that he needed. They gave up on this child, point blank, period. That's the end of the story. And all she wanted to do here was make sure that people weren't mad at her and they didn't think that she was a monster, because she's not a monster. Okay, let's move on. I thought this was interesting. There's 2 men had been convicted for their role in an armed standoff on a busy Massachusetts highway in 2021. It lasted more than 8 hours and caused traffic delays during a busy 4th of July weekend. Middlesex District Attorney Marion Ryan announced Friday that Jamal Tavon Sanders Latimer and Stephen Anthony Perez were found guilty on multiple gun charges related to the standoff. They will be sentenced July 16th. The 2 were part of a sovereign citizen group called Rise of the Moors that claimed they were on the way to training when a state trooper stopped to ask if they needed help. That sparked the hours-long standoff on Interstate 95. Okay, Rise of the Moors. Are you guys... Does anybody else hear rabbit hole calling your name on this one? They call it the Wakefield standoff. Who are Rise of the Moors? Let's see what this law office says. There's been a lot of news coverage about the incident in Wakefield where 11 armed men that created a tense situation with police. The men claim to be traveling through the state lawfully because they travel lawfully. Remember that they don't have to live by our rules, and that they were protected by the U.S. Constitution. They also claim to be members of a group called Rise of the Moors. They appear to be on an offshoot of the sovereign citizen movement that tend to operate within their own interpretation of U.S. law. In this instance, they are arguing that federal law allows them to carry their guns. While the Second Amendment does protect one's right to bear arms, the right is not absolute. The right to own, that's exactly what Judge Giroux said. The right to own and carry guns and other weapons is regulated by both federal and state laws. Police encountered these gentlemen on a Massachusetts highway, and therefore are subject to the laws of the Commonwealth. Yesterday, they were arraigned on gun charges. This is an old, obviously, and detained pending a dangerous hearing. Most of the defendants either elected to represent themselves or were appointed an attorney on a limited basis. These men might claim that they are outside of the jurisdiction of the Massachusetts court system, but they are mistaken. The sooner they realize this, the better off they are, since some of the charges that they face carry minimum mandatory sentences of a year or more in prison or jail, depending on their individual situations. I expect that these cases will play out in court with as much drama as the standoff on the I-95 did. I didn't see a whole lot about this case, though. Did you guys see that? Maybe it's just getting started? Okay, yeah, this is what I want to hear. The group. I want to understand this group. Yeah, I'm late to this one, I know. This was July 10th of 2021. 11 people armed with long guns and dressed in tactical gear who claim to be, if you're dressed in tactical gear, what do you expect? Claim to be a part of a group called the Rise of the Moors were arrested following an hour-long standoff with Massachusetts police. That was over the weekend. Okay, this is all, again, I'm reading from July 10th, 2021 article. Police said they found heavily armed men in two vehicles near Interstate 95 around 1:30 a.m. on Saturday. Yeah, and that's another thing, too. That's an odd hour. A 9-hour standoff ensued before all 11 were arrested. No one was harmed in the incident. The men arrested range in age from 17 to 40 and hailed from Rhode Island, New York, and Michigan. Two of the men refused to identify themselves, and a third is a 17-year-old whose name will not be released because he's a minor. Okay. Police say the arrests, I'm not going to read their names, but they were 29, 21, 27, 29, 40, 34, and 29. Okay. Some of these guys were from the Bronx, Detroit, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. Okay. Not guilty pleas were entered on behalf of all the defendants who are being held without bail pending a Friday hearing. Massachusetts State Police Colonel Christopher Mason said the men identified themselves as part of a group called the Rise of the Moors and said they were traveling from Rhode Island to Maine for training. It is unclear what that training involved. According to the group's website, Rise of the Moors is a group of Moorish Americans dedicated to educating new Moors and influencing our elders. Well, that to me sounds cultish. I'm sorry. The group is headquartered in Rhode Island. Okay, and the group did not respond to ABC's news request for comment. Do we want to go to their website? Maybe we will. I don't know. Let's see. The website says that Moors are not sovereign citizens, but argues that Moors are the original sovereigns of America and are therefore immune from U.S. law. Freddie Cruz, a research analyst at the Southern Poverty Law Center, who tracks anti-government groups, said Rise of the Moors is classified as a sovereign citizen anti-government group. He said the group draws much of their beliefs and inspirations from ancient civilizations, including ties to the Aztecs, the Olmecs, and other native peoples. They tend to reference all these past civilizations with the idea that they're somehow entitled to, or there's somehow a lineage there that affords them the right to essentially disassociate themselves from the U.S. government. Because they refuse to abide by American law, group members can end up in tense situations with police. This is all from this guy, Cruz. So a lot of these groups don't tend to register their firearms. They don't register their vehicles. They tend to be a recipe for disaster, especially if law enforcement is involved, because they tend to essentially become quite standoffish. In Massachusetts incident, In the Massachusetts incident, police said that they had asked the men for driver's license and gun license, but the men said they didn't have any. The Moorish sovereign citizen movement emerged in the early 1990s as an offshoot of the anti-government sovereign citizens movement, and more specifically, the Moorish Science Temple of America. Oh, Lord. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. I know I keep talking about rabbit holes, but God, this stuff, like, it spawns off. There's like so many, there's so many pieces to all this. I could be on here for hours talking about the sovereign stuff. Okay, the Moorish Science Temple of America was created in 1913, but not all MSTA are linked to sovereign citizens. So, according to the Moorish Science Temple of America's website, the temple is a divine and national movement that teaches about Moorish identity, which under their definition means Black Americans. They practice Islam and denounce the sovereign citizens movement and identify as U.S. citizens. So the ABC News has reached out to the Moorish Science Temple of America for comment. Some Moorish sovereigns believe that a 1787 treaty between the U.S. and Morocco, a claim that SPLC says is fictitious, grants them immunity from U.S. law. The center reported. Okay, some groups create their own birth certificates, passports, driver's license, and vehicle registrations. They create their own. Okay, so if you feel like you have to have the need for that, then okay. This perceived immunity from local authority is used to justify refusing to pay taxes. I mean, honestly, think about it. This is so true. Pay car insurance, buy car insurance, because, you know, most states, I don't know what states don't require you to have car insurance, even if it's just liability. Register vehicles and defraud banks. The movement has no unified leadership and consists of small groups, which of most operate in the Southeast, Northeast, and Midwest U.S. Despite experts classifying the group as sovereign citizens and anti-government, Colonel Mason said that the self-professed leader of the group of 11 men arrested wanted it very much known that their ideology is not anti-government. He noted he can't confirm that they are the validated members of the group. SPLC officially listed Rise of the Moors as anti-government organization in 2020. Cruz said the center has counted so far 6 organizations that are classified as Moorish sovereign anti-government groups across the country. Ken Gray, a retired FBI special agent and professor of criminal justice at the University of New Haven, told ABC News that sovereign citizens tend to be more of a law enforcement nuisance, and they seem to be a violent group. Oh, wait, no. They tend to be more of a law enforcement nuisance than they seem to be a violent group. Okay, well, I give them that much. If they're not trying to be violent, you know. They seem to be much more involved in tying people up in legal problems, making false claims on property, and not paying taxes. This group here said that they were going up to conduct training, and they were outfitted in camouflage clothing, carrying body armor, and had long guns with them. But that does not necessarily mean that they were planning to do something violent. It could very well be that they were training like that for defensive purposes. Cruz said the SPLC has reported seeing the Rise of Moors group participate in parliamentary training before, but the location of the training is unknown. He said it's uncommon to see sovereign citizen groups participate in such training. He warned the public to be wary of such groups, saying sovereign communities tend to prey on people who have fallen on hard times and are not necessarily aware of what it means to be part of a sovereign nation. With the Moorish groups, especially, they try and tailor their messages to bring in Black and brown folks with the idea that their sovereign nation will provide opportunities and a more equitable society for folks. A lot of times people get caught up in that and don't realize that essentially what they're espousing is illegal. You just can't grab a car and drive it wherever you want. You just can't squat in a home and make it your own. You just can't carry around firearms and not have them registered. After 11 men arrested in Wakefield have been charged with unlawful possession of a firearm, unlawful possession of ammunition, use of body armor in commission of a crime, possession of a high-capacity magazine, improper storage of firearms in a vehicle, and conspiracy to commit a crime, Dow and the unnamed teen are also being charged with providing a false name to police. So the teenager was arrested to parental custody while the adults are being held at the Billerica House of Correction on a $100,000 cash bail. Most of the men rejected the charges against them, and most of them said they'd represent themselves. So the court had to enter not guilty pleas on their behalf. All right, do we want to dive into that at some point, you guys? Do we want to dive into those trials and look at them together? I think I have a feeling I know what y'all are going to say. I think I know what you're going to say. Here are the pictures from that standoff. And we'll watch this video too. But there's one of them. That's Latimer. I don't know where I was July of 2021. Oh, y'all, you think about it. That's two. Here's another thing too. If they were going into training for July 4th, why is it that they tend to do this stuff on major holidays that are in the U.S.? You don't recognize the Constitution, but you're going to do this on a holiday that's been set up by the government. You know? I mean, come on. It's just, all right, let's watch this real quick.
I'm gonna ask you not to interrupt me again.
Wars. I'll read this since it's not gonna. I've never seen them before. This is already stuff I've read.
I reassured them that we are not sovereign citizens. I reassured them that we are not black identity extremists. I reassured them that we are not anti-police. I reassured them that we are not anti-government.
New details about the armed militia group called the Rise of the Moors. You might remember it's been nearly a year since the Moors were at the center of a long police standoff on I-95 in Wakefield.
Yeah, the case has gone quiet since that day. So where does it stand now? WBZ Chief Investigator Cheryl Fiandaca has some answers tonight.
We have the right to travel as long as we're not making any unnecessary stops.
The standoff was streamed live. Heavily armed, wearing tactical gear and body armor, nearly a dozen members of the Rise of the Moors standing out in the middle of the highway. The self-proclaimed militia group was traveling from Rhode Island to Maine and stopped on the side of Route 95 in the middle of the night to refuel one of their trucks. It was July 4th weekend, and that stop caught the attention of a state trooper. Police say the men had no permits for the guns, and that led to a 9-hour negotiation, shutting down part of the highway in Wakefield. In the end, the men surrendered. Police recovered pistols, AR-15s, and rifles. In all, 11 were arrested. In court, facing a host of weapons charges, the leader of the group, Jamal Latimer, also known as Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey, told the judge the court had no jurisdiction over them. 8 of the men have now been indicted. The I-team has learned 2 are still being held in jail. Latimer is in custody in Middlesex County. All of the cases are pending. I'm a free more. I'm a nationalist. The Rise of the Moors believes they are sovereign citizens under a treaty with the U.S. and Morocco and are not subject to state or federal laws.
I reassured them that these men here will not be pointing guns at them.
During the standoff, the men claimed to be peaceful and said they were on their way to private land in Maine to train, waving a Moroccan flag. All of the members, including a 17-year-old, have court hearings this month, with trials scheduled to begin in August. Cheryl Fiandaca, WBZ News.
New details about the armed militia group.
Let's see. What's this?
And that uncooperation continued today from the start of this hearing. The defendants in the Rise of the More movement posted numerous objections, including the names listed on the court documents listing their charges. Now, the 3 men appearing in court today are among the 8 recently indicted on various state firearms charges. The men have refused lawyers and are defending themselves with arguments such as that they are descendants of a mythic Moroccan nation that once covered much of the planet, including America. Prosecutors played video of that standoff on Route 128, including body camera video, in which they say the men can be heard.
Oh, this one right here? He's just pissed because he's short.
Talking about designating one of themselves as a sniper and loading a round into a weapon.
Summarizes his review of the videos on Exhibit 3, including statements by Mr. Latimer, including if they start walking toward us, spread out, they're acting funny and they're moving funny. Where's your arm at? You're a sniper, so go get your sniper and go to the front of the van.
Now, during the first weekend of July, a trooper had spotted the men's vehicle pulled over on the side of Route 128 in Wakefield. The men were carrying rifles and wearing military-style clothing, but they claimed to be just passing through peacefully on their way from Rhode Island to Maine. State police shut down the highway, faced off with the men for hours until they eventually surrendered without incident. They've been locked up ever since. Today, the defendants submitted dozens of pieces of evidence in their own defense, including a printout of the Moroccan flag and a document entitled the Zodiac Constitution. The judge said he's going to need time to go over these mountains of new evidence, and he postponed the rest of the hearing until next week. Live in Woburn, David Bieniek, WCVB News Center 5.
All right, I might go. That's y'all. That's just a lot. And there might be some people waiting on me to get to this Daniel Callahan thing. So I'm going to say this is definitely a rabbit hole that we eventually will go down. I just don't want to go down it right now. Okay. Whew, it's a lot. Okay, let's go back to what they're saying about this Melbourne, because it looks like there's a news update on the Melbourne, Florida active shooter. They have confirmed that the suspect is no longer alive. So that's it. I guess they'll come up with a motive, eventually letting us know what the motive was, why he did what he did. But for now, that's all we have. Okay, so you guys already saw this press conference. I put it up the other day. Right? I know I did it. Yeah. Okay. Why isn't there more here? Oh, it was canceled. His court appearance for Jackson, Mississippi was canceled. That was 18 hours ago. Everybody keeps showing that same stuff.
The court appearance today for accused kidnapper and murderer Daniel Callahan has been canceled. He's being held in Jackson, Mississippi, charged with the deaths of Callie and Aaron Brunette and for kidnapping the 6-year-old child who survived. Callahan waived his rights to the preliminary hearings Friday, and officials at federal court in Jackson say the next step in this case is for him to be brought back to Louisiana to face charges in Tangipahoa Parish, where the mother was found dead at her home in Laranger. The U.S. Marshal's Office will handle that transfer, and we are working to confirm when that will happen. In the meantime, we've obtained new video from a property owner in Tangipahoa Parish of what looks like Daniel Callahan walking around their property naked. Now, the doorbell video was dated June 10th, so this is days before Callie Brunette was found dead with the multiple gunshot stab wounds inside of her Loranger home, and a manhunt started for her 2 daughters. This video was taken at a property just outside of Amite. Now, the owner says the man in this video is naked, wearing only an apron and carrying a crossbow. The man who looks like Callahan proceeds to walk up the stairs. Callahan is arrested along with an alleged accomplice, Victoria Cots, and again, he faces 2 first-degree murder charges in Louisiana and a capital murder charge in Mississippi. Eleanor Tabone will have more on that new video tonight at 6.
Well, it's not really a new video. It's kind of already been out there. It was a hunting camp that he was out at. So there's really no new update. Yesterday I had stuff I had to do yesterday afternoon, so I thought I would come back today and report about this conference, but it didn't happen. I have a list of questions that I would like some answers to. And the reason I have started doing a list of questions is because I have been contacted by Dixie Hemphill, who is the half-sister of Daniel Callahan, the man that's been accused in this case. And I'm waiting for her to email me back, trying to set up a time that she and I can do something together, or just to have a discussion with her to see what she feels like, putting out there. I definitely want to make sure that it's done ethically and doesn't make her feel uncomfortable. And because I'm not a competitive news person, I'm only going to talk about the things she wants to talk about. So just waiting for her to contact me back. But there a couple of questions I had, and whether or not she wants to answer these, that's a whole nother story. But here's the questions that I have. I want to know a little bit about their life growing up. I want to know what he was like as a child, anywhere from way young to, like a little above toddler, 6 years old, somewhere in there, to how he was as he started to become more into his teen years. I want to know what's more about him being not diagnosed, because I think there was some mention of that, and I want to know if he has been diagnosed as schizophrenic, because I think that was something that was said out there. I want to know what his connection to Victoria Cox is, if she knows Victoria Cox, if she knows about their friendship or relationship, whatever it is that they have. And I'm pretty sure she has moved. She doesn't live near him anymore, or she doesn't live in the Loranger area. And I'm not going to disclose where she lives, because nobody needs to know that. But kind of want to dive into the distance that she's put between her and her brother, and what kind of contact they've had. We did go over her interview with the other channel, who has a website with article. And I went over the article, and she did answer some questions about trying to help him in the past. And of course, that article brought in the whole thing where she thought he might be connected to the disappearance of John Estes in 2018. So I would like to know if she knew anything about him having any kind of friendship or connection to John Estes. And I'd like to hear more about what he said to her about John Estes. I would also like to know if she plans on going to trial at all. And I also want her to be able to speak out as to why she's coming forward to the media and everything right now, because I want people to understand she's getting some negative feedback. And I get why she's getting some negative feedback. I'm going to talk on both sides. Okay. So there's been a couple of us that have been watching this since the beginning, right? And kind of your first thought when you first saw her talk about some of this stuff, you were like, man, she's passionate about this, because she was. When she was interviewed in the media, it seemed like she was very emotional. And a lot of people automatically say, oh, why she's this fake emotion? Is she just like taking in the limelight? Why is she so emotional about this? If she doesn't like her brother, then why is she so emotional about this? She's just taking advantage of the situation that she can be on TV now, or was, something like that. And honestly, that is a normal thought when you first look at this and watch her interview. But the more I've delved in this, here's what I'm coming up with. This sister, you guys, Dixie Hemphill, has been out there for years talking and speaking out on Daniel Callahan's behaviors, actions, past, what he's capable of. She's been putting out warnings for years, and not many people are listening to her. So you have to understand where she's coming from. This isn't new to her. This isn't something like, oh my God, he killed somebody. Oh, let me get up in front of the media and talk about it. No, this is her saying, I told you guys, I told you this was going to happen. I've been out there advocating for years, trying to get somebody to listen to me, that he's a danger to society. He is going to hurt someone. So this is basically her interview with this media is basically her saying, if somebody would have listened to me, this woman and her child might be alive. So I want to give Dixie the opportunity to come on here and she and I talk and just kind of, I've got a lot of questions, and like she and I have that Southern thing going on together. So I would like to kind of just uncensored talk about things and then let her agree on what I'm going to post and what she feels comfortable with me posting. And so if you're watching Dixie, that's my thought process. I just want to get real with this because I want to understand this case. I really want to understand the connection between Victoria Cox and him. I kind of feel like it might be drugs, but you may know more than that. So that's my thoughts on the Daniel Callahan thing. I guess that's all I have for you guys for right now. As things progress, there's a lot going on in the true crime world. There's so much going on I can't keep up. How are you guys able to keep up? Do y'all want me to go out there and start finding all this stuff and bring it all into one place? Is that what I need to do? My channel is not doing well. My channel is struggling right now, and I don't know. I think it's because I start something and I stop something. I know I have a habit of that. I start up with a topic and then I move on. I'm just trying out different stuff. I'm still trying to find where my channel needs to be, what I need to be, talking about. I feel like this, doing this update of just different things that go on in the true crime world. I kind of feel like that's where I need to be, just talking about whatever it is in the true crime world. The Judge Tammy, they stopped putting her videos out of her courtroom. So there's not going to be much more of that for me to post. I don't know. I don't know where I'm leaning towards. I'm getting a lot of people unsubbing, but I think it's because they're Darrell Brooks addicts and they're just, that's all they want to talk about or hear about. I don't know. All right, guys. So that's it for now. Stay tuned. Stay safe. And I love you guys. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out. And feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.